The Love Zone Marriage is a 12-section video course, 2 hours each, that will help strengthen your marriage through lessons, examples, and activities for you and your spouse to do together. Start with the first 2-hour course and progress to the 12th. I wish you the very best in your marriage journey.
Hi, I'm Sharella. This is I Choose You, the good choices we make in a lasting marriage. This first class, I Choose You, is a 12-part class in a series called The Love Zone Marriage, Strengthening Your Relationship with Self, Spouse, and God. So in this course, we'll talk about I choose God, I choose Him, meaning spouse, I choose me, I choose us, I choose why, and finally, I choose love. So I want to start out with a story of my uncle, who we will call Uncle Bear. And this uncle hunted bears. And he laughed like a bear. No matter what it was you said, it made you feel special. So Uncle Bear had 6 kids from about 6 in about 10 year span. And he was married to Aunt, who we will call Grumble. Aunt Grumble was kind of a negative person and liked to grumble. So Uncle Bear would come to our house, and it was so fun because he would play a game with us where he'd sit on the couch, and then all of us kids would try to get away from him. We'd play keep away and run away, and then as soon as he caught us, there was 3 options. 1, he would tickle us. 2, he would kiss us. And 3, he would spank us on the bum. So usually we just chose that first option of being tickled. And then we'd run away and get caught again. Don't know why we would do that, but we did, and it was really fun. So that was 3 choices. Well, then along came new Aunt Angel, and Aunt Grumble and Uncle Bear got a divorce, which meant that we didn't see very much more of them. And we didn't have the option to play 3 choices and play with the 6 kid cousins so much as we once did. I have to tell you, new Aunt Angel was a really great lady. She was like an angel. She was fabulous. I could see every reason why Uncle Bear would want to marry her. But I asked my parents, why? Why did they divorce? And my mom's answer was, Aunt Grumble was really negative. Negative? Negative is grounds for divorce. This did not sit well with me and has not sat well with me through the years. So I've studied it out and thought about it, and this course will talk more about this. But in a marriage, you do have 3 choices yourself. You can stay and hate it, you can stay and like it, or you can leave it. If you stay and hate it, there's like the 40% divorce rate of people, and marriages are still unhappy. We stay married, we don't stay married, we're still unhappy. If you stay and like it, this takes effort and marital maturity to make it work. But a large percentage of those who don't divorce and work on it are happy later. The third choice is to leave it. And there's a large percentage who divorce again after being divorced once, so it's not exactly a solution. So some of the implications of leaving is that, well, it's cheaper to keep her, right? There's missed opportunities for personal growth, and you still have similar issues in the next marriage, like I just mentioned. So leave it is not always the best option, though I will also say there are worse things than divorce, of course. So in 3 choices with staying, because you are here now and because you care about your marriage, I assume that your hope is to stay. So there are 3 choices for staying, according to David Schnarch. He says there's the submit and dominate relationship. So this is where you have a half a person, the submitter who just does whatever the dominator wants, to the dominator who is like 1.5 people's worth. There is the withdraw, pursue relationship where one runs and one chases after them, pursuing them. I call this the half to half relationship because they're really not themselves. And then the third choice is differentiate. This is where 2 whole people come together. Where do you think your marriage falls in these 3 relationship styles? Submit, dominate, that is the first. Second, withdraw, pursue. Or 3, differentiate. And we will be talking about differentiating more so you can understand that better. What does your hunch say? Well, we will talk more about all of this, and so I'm excited to get going in our first course, which will be I Choose God First. So I'll see you then. Section 1, I choose God first. So this is our first choice, choosing God. Choosing each other requires choosing God first. The 2 great commandments are, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. This is in Matthew chapter 22. And for our intents and purposes today, our neighbor is our spouse. So loving your neighbor as loving your spouse as yourself is meaning to the same degree, and as is while you are doing it for yourself. So in those scenarios that I gave in the introduction about the 3 choices, if you are submitting and withdrawing and dominating and that kind of thing, you are not doing it to the same degree or while you're doing it to yourself. And that's what I'd like to talk about. So if you love your spouse more than yourself, it's going to look like this, with this bigger heart. The spouse has the domination in your marriage. If you love yourself more, then your spouse is going to be this little heart and not getting as much attention. If you come together as a complement to each other, this is you and me, then this is loving your spouse as yourself. So neither is the man without the woman, neither the woman without the man in the Lord, right? You read that in 1 Corinthians. So this is what this looks like when we come together and we are equal, then we love our spouse as ourself, or others, however you might want to look at it. So then when we add God, then we love him first and we love him most. We come to this sweet spot where the purple heart is, and this is where the love zone balance is right here where this purple heart is, where God is first and you are loving your spouse as yourself. So the most resilient marriages hold God as foundational to their marital success. So when I choose you, God sanctifies it. When God no longer sanctifies it, you no longer choose each other. And this is when divorce happens, right? And there are worse things than divorce. So I'm not saying that you should never consider divorce. So including God and incorporating a system of checks and balances. As long as it balances, no matter the stumbling blocks and troubles, he'll help you make it work. I like to think of God like a trapeze artist. I cringed as I watched the 10 o'clock news story of a trapeze act Mary and Tice duo transcend on America's Got Talent. The guy dropped his wife from maybe 20 feet high. Their hands fumbled among a puff of white powder as he grabbed for her, and down she went. She stood a little shaken, but was fortunately still in one piece. Talk about limber. I loved the trapeze scene on The Greatest Showman, where Zendaya and Zac Efron sing Rewrite the Stars. Now, admittedly, she was the one dropping him, but they both played great parts in that romantic scene. In a marriage marred by our weaknesses, let's face it, we're going to drop each other repeatedly, and sometimes it really hurts. But we get up again and ask for a retry, assuming you're both willing to retry. So let's shift this dynamic from, say, a husband hanging on to his wife to the Lord hanging on to his investment, you. After all, not all trapeze duos are married or singing romantic songs to each other, but of course it makes for a great story. You may feel that you're dangling in midair, about to be dropped 20 feet to the ground, feeling gut-punched and winded. But the awesome, wonderful part about being suspended from the hands of a loving God is that he is never going to drop you, ever. He is your support. You can't do it without him. He helps you to shine, to look good. Seriously, how many of us are looking at the guy in the duo? It's the shining woman, right? So naturally, he's also not the one noticed for all his strength, much like God isn't noticeable to those who aren't on the lookout. In fact, we probably take advantage of him, just assuming he'll be there. We have to choose to hang on to him because it's so easy to simply let go. As they say, either you're moving towards him or away from him. Hanging on to God has worked wonders in my life. I look for him everywhere. I am super strong unto myself when I look to him in every thought, doubting not, fearing not. I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me. That's Philippians 4:13. Like a pit bull biting into the mailman's pant leg, I can't be shaken off. God's got a hold on me, and I'm not letting go. So, what is the balance for you? Who is first or most in your life? Sometimes it's hard to tell, so let me read through some lists here. So this means that you're putting your spouse first, okay? You always defer to your spouse's wishes, demands, and opinions. Your spouse does all the talking in social situations. Your spouse controls the spending and finances. Your spouse makes all the religious way of life decisions. You're always the first and maybe only to apologize. Your spouse makes media and entertainment choices. You don't feel like you can voice your preferences to your spouse. You take the bulk of responsibility in parenting. You don't give yourself a needed break so your spouse is happy. Your body reacts negatively when around your spouse. You feel defensive and emotionally unsafe around your spouse. You go against your instinct or inner voice to please your spouse. Let's look at what it looks like if you're putting yourself first. You always get your wishes, demands, and opinions. You do all the talking in social situations. You control the spending and finances. You make all the religious way of life decisions. You're always demanding an apology. You make media and entertainment choices. You override the preferences of your spouse. You give the bulk responsibility in parenting. You let your spouse serve you endlessly. You notice resistance from your spouse, but don't know why. You feel offensive and aggressive around your spouse. You feel you have all the answers for your spouse. Let's look at what it looks like to have God first. You consider your wishes, demands, and opinions prayerfully. You serve others in balance with your energy reserves. You are cautious yet abundant in your spending and finances. You center God in your religious way of life decisions. Your eye is single to God's glory, sometimes despite spouse. You may override your spouse's preferences if God directs it. You may recognize God's hand in the responsibility of parenting, or that I should say, you recognize his hand. You notice reactions of spouse, but honor God's direction more. You give and take openly in your conversations. You feel compassion and curiosity around spouse, but you still may not do what they want if you feel prayerfully different. You understand your spouse has just as much access to God's inspiration as you do. So again, who would you say now is first or foremost in your life? This can be hard to detect. I like to think of God's love like a symphony. What if a music score had a continuous string of the exact same notes? There really aren't a whole lot of options on the musical staff, but when notes are judiciously arranged, they amazingly can create a symphony, a masterpiece. God created each of us a masterpiece out of not many notes. We have our basic outline, 2 legs, 10 fingers, a brain, yet we're quite different. With that difference comes the gift of agency to choose exactly what we'll do with our legs and 10 fingers and brain. That being said, not all of us choose to do what our Creator would hope. Yet God's desire for us is that we can be like him. How does God love us so much? Isaiah asks, can a woman forget her sucking child? It's absurd to think God would ever forget us. He has created your very existence. Sri Chinmoy says, it's like a gardener who has created a garden with many beautiful flowers. If a flower says, no, he does not love me, is that not ridiculous? The very fact that the gardener has planted and cultivated the flowers and brought you into his creation, is this not his love? His love is unlimited in every way. It is like the sun. The sun is for everybody. Everybody can use the sunlight. But if we keep our doors and windows shut, what can he do? As we've heard in John 4:8, God is love. To me, God is like a Hershey's kiss. God at my center feels like a Hershey's kiss. When he is with me that deeply, I feel him at the very core of my center, reaching upward to the tip top of my heart, with the lower points reaching down and around under my rib cage in strength, reaching around like a firm hug on the inside. I feel grounded, guided, guarded, and substantial. Breathing low and deeply, I am enough because he is right there in the middle. With the sparkling wrapping off, I find that what's inside is even better than what I could only see before. Kind of like thinking you know him only to find he's so much more than you could ever imagine. It melts a little and snuggles in like when you first pop it in your mouth. It's rich and sweet, a treat like the Lord's love can be. It sports a flag of surrender at the top, waving to God that I'm ready for him to be my center. I am giving up everything I have and am to know him. I am surrendering my self-perceived power to allow his inside. I don't fear evil because I know what I have of him inside far beats what I once expected myself to stand strong for alone. When I think of him not there in my center, I become limp, like a rag doll. And when I start to drag, I realize I've hooked into my own power source instead. Not that I must always be moving, for stillness is often bliss, but I must regularly tap into his source. Heaven's kiss is in my behalf, available to everyone who chooses to take him within. So here's an exercise for you. Ask God what he thinks of you. Take 5 minutes to write about what you feel like God's love is for you. Just ask him. Pen to paper and just ask him what he thinks. So that's the end of the section, I choose God first. And the next one will be I choose him. This is the second section of I choose you. This is I choose him. So we've talked about I choose God, and now I choose him, meaning your spouse. So let me ask this question and see if you agree. You can't say yes until you can say no. What does this mean to you? So I felt like I had no choice, despite what professionals in religion would tell me that I always had a choice. I'd had defensive / safety / unopenness issues that told me otherwise. So it seems like that broken dish. This is the one where you have a little toddler in the kitchen and a dish falls onto the ground and breaks, and you think, oh, I'll just clean it up later. And so you just usher the toddler out of the room and you think, oh, we'll take care of it like several hours later, or wait for your spouse or something like that to take care of this broken dish. And so then you miss out on lunch and you don't use the kitchen like you normally would have because of that broken dish. Well, if you had just cleaned up the broken dish, you could keep going. And so you say, you know what? So one option would be, after the dish breaks, just say, we're just going to clean this up. Because you're sort of forced to clean it up, because otherwise your life kind of goes on hold and you don't do things the way that you want to. And so you kind of feel forced to just clean up that broken dish instead of making your life revolve around the glass pieces on the ground. Have you ever had that happen? I've totally had that happen. And let me tell you, it's just better to just clean up that broken dish. So it feels like I was kind of forced to just clean up that broken dish because the consequences were worse of not. So I finally felt I had a choice to seriously consider all my options, to make good on actually having a choice, which meant the D word had to be an option. So for me, the D word, that's divorce. And I always thought that will not be in my vocabulary. But it ended up that I knew that I finally had to make a choice. I couldn't just keep sailing along like I was and just assuming that things could never be that way, could never be the divorce way. So choosing your spouse must be purely based on agency, but it's not as simple as it sounds. It took me 22 years to choose my spouse. A kind therapist led me through choosing my spouse. So my spouse had struggled with habits, weaknesses that we each deal with in our own ways, that left me questioning whether I had chosen well. Would a loving God lead me astray in this decision long ago? Did a loving God allow me my say in the decision? If it wasn't right, wouldn't a loving God sway me differently? Would a loving God allow me a different answer 22 years later? Does a loving God want both our happiness in marriage? Would God still love me no matter what choice I made after 22 years? It was amazingly confusing to realize I hadn't truly ever made a choice in the marriage decision. It just seemed like a good arrangement, and I felt God was behind it. Though marriages may persist, most marriages function in emotional divorce. I have a mentor, an expert that I visited, who had had a stress management practice for 40 years, and he says that 95% of the people who walk through his door are unhappy. And he's not just a mentor for marriage, he is about stress management at work, like on the job. So he's seeing all sorts of people, and he says 95% of those couples are unhappy. So I loved running upon this concept in several places, and I'll explain it to you now. This is what I name the footpath in marriage, and we have the 5 F's. 1 is fresh, 2 is floored, 3 is functional, 4 is friends, and 5 is flourishing. These are the steps that we take in a marriage from the beginning to the end. So the fresh stage, you are in enchantment, and you just love each other, and you just can see no wrong in them. And in this stage, you'll see the little dots, little pink dots down there. This is enmeshed. You're in each other's space, and you just don't care. And then you drop down to the floored stage. This is the power struggle. And how many of us get stuck in the power struggle? I realize that we are stuck in this power struggle and have cycled back to it again in different stages in our life. And this one, if you look at the little dots, this is conflicted. You're on top of each other. You're just, it's a fight. You're on top. So the third, functional, is the committed stage. And I know I've wafted in and out of this stage as well. And this is kind of an unequal place. You say, I'm going to do it no matter what, no matter what's happening, I'm here. And you live in that little pink, the 2 pink dots of unequalness. Then in the friend stage, this is the upswing. This is the funner part, and it's fairsy squaresy. So you have these 2 little dots that are fairly divided apart. And then the last one that is so hard to come to is flourishing and blooming. And aren't things just right when you're in a hot tub? And this one, the little pink dots are attentive. And this is, you're not overcrowding each other. You're not too spaced apart. You are just right in your closeness in marriage. And that's a rather difficult place to be, but it can happen. So let's go through these steps and the various parts that describe them. In the fresh step, your happiness idea is, you make me happy. The agreement is, I'll make you happy if you'll make me happy. And the description is euphoria, best foot forward, differences minimized, and idealized expectations. This is by Roger Allen, this portion of this that I found so intriguing. The second stage, floored, the happiness idea is, it's your fault I'm not happy. Have you been there? The agreement is, I'll get you before you get me. This is the active agreement. But the passive agreement is, don't hurt me. The description is disappointment, blame, differences, unrealistic expectations. The third section or step is functional. And the happiness idea is, I could be happy if you were different or you would change. And the agreement is, I won't upset you if you won't upset me. The description is resignation, obligation, differences smoothed over, unfulfilled expectations. The fourth stage, or the friends, happiness idea is, I am responsible to make myself happy. And I definitely feel myself when I'm in this stage. And the agreement is, I'll be fair with you if you'll be fair with me. And the description is owning needs and wants, letting go of control, individuality respected, fun times together. So it can be a really good time. And then finally, that last one, flourishing. The happiness idea is, happiness comes from giving to and supporting you. The agreement is, I accept you unconditionally. The description is enchantment, joy, aliveness, differences valued, no expectations, happiness and serving. So you can definitely go back and forth in these stages, and you probably have. But of course, the most fun place to be is at flourishing. So let's talk about 6 steps to a mature marriage. 1, stop blaming and shaming. Take accountability for your stuff. Don't say, he made me do it. 2, prioritize by truly choosing each other, but understand give and take. I am full enough to give because I choose to be satisfied. We choose to see we belong together. Know and be known. Cherish differences and give up thoughts of superiority and inferiority. We honor one another. 4, understand your consensus style to bring oneness and unity. We'll talk more about that in another class. 5, we accept the constant movement of tides. That change is inevitable, and we create space to bridge the two. And 6, get outside support when needed. To be teachable and open. You don't have to do it alone. So where are you on this footpath? Fresh, floored, functional, friends, flourishing? And how can you see yourself advancing on this path? Here are some I choose you statements. I am there for you when I can be, equal with how I am there for me. That is loving your spouse as yourself. I am bringing my best foot forward, but sometimes I don't, and I and you are still okay. I self-confront for incongruent parts of me, but accept that they sometimes lead. And I take responsibility for my stuff. I take responsibility for my stuff by not expecting you to provide my happiness, though it's nice when they're able to get on the same page of happiness. Being aware of how I want to stop being selfish through things that don't really satisfy. Letting go of the things that are really only about pride and control. And when I am complete unto myself, ego or edge God out no longer shows up. Truly caring about our relationship, trusting that my desires can be honored simply by willingness to receive. Also, being willing to honestly share my fears and allowing them to escape into your care, knowing you can often handle them because they generally are not a problem to you. Not expecting you to be a mind reader. When you carry out your best guesses to fulfill my desires in ways that don't work, we waste precious effort and time and bring frustration. Being myself, both good and bad, no pretenses or excuses, so integrity is maintained and escalated. Doing and saying things that edify, that leave us both better. Communicate when not to communicate if it doesn't edify. If you generally have a problem choosing, you aren't loving yourself. You are faking it or have no opinion to please others. So here is a choosing attitude. I treat you like I do nobody else. I sacrifice for you, trusting you to do the same depending on what is most important to each of us. I know that I benefit the most than anybody when I build you up. I invest fully despite what may ever be lost because you are worth the risk. Sometimes we must be broken to rebuild, but we don't need to get stuck in the ruins. We can recognize when a remodel is needed and potentially forthcoming. I know you are not perfect, but you are perfect for us right now. I am thankful for you, and that alone puts me in a winning place. Because a problem is never solved on the level it was created, and because we both likely have a different journey for advancement, we aren't going to learn things the same way or in the same time. I recognize we will push and pull each other, feel justified or stuck, frustrated or superior, and it's all in the tug of war of thee lift me, I lift thee, and we'll ascend together. Those ideas are from Jennifer Finlayson Fife's Strengthening Marriage course. So let's talk about the marital investment bank. It's not that the grass is greener on the other side, but which grass is getting watered. Marriage works like an investment. The more you put in at a good interest rate, the more you eventually get back. Richard and Deborah McClendon, marriage counselors, say, there are things we each need to do personally to improve our marriage. Me, the things we need to do together as a couple to strengthen our marital relationship. We, and ways we can more fully involve God in our marriage. Thee. So how do you deposit into the marital investment bank? Dates. Yes, the money you spent is cheaper than marriage therapy down the road. And time? Well, if you can't find time for him, your marriage priorities are messed up. Accentuating the positive. John Gottman suggests a 5-to-1 ratio of good to the bad. If you are having more bad experiences than good, there's much more of a chance your marriage won't make it. And that's based on the studies that he found. Attention. Set down what you're doing when he speaks to you, or outline boundaries of when you can be available. Also, in public, treat him like something special so others see you deeply care about him. Time to talk. Set aside 20 minutes to talk and connect. Again, if you can't find the time or willingness, priorities are mismanaged or safety hasn't been well established. Communicate better. We must think through the Spirit. Consider your response gap carefully. Before you respond, consider if it's really true. If it is, how would the Holy Spirit direct you to say it in a careful, edifying, and honest way that imparts your love and acceptance? So, investing in marriage takes time and attention and energy. But the greater the risk, the greater the return. When you truly choose your spouse, everything falls into place because it has a place of belonging. So I would like to read to you a meditation that I wrote about my husband for a book that I wrote a few years ago. And I knew what kind of idea that I wanted here, but I was kind of irritated with him at this time. He was not very happy with me, so I had to get myself in this headspace. So I'd like to encourage you to get into this headspace while I read this meditation. Go ahead and close your eyes, get comfortable, and think as I read this. You find yourself sitting on a bench in a gorgeous, luscious flower garden. A breeze floats through the meadow, over the hill, and up to the bench where you lounge, through your flowing hair. Violet vines surround the trellis hanging above and around you. The sun is about to set, and you welcome its colorful display. A sensual wisp of the fragrance of honeysuckle swirls around you as you notice pink collecting beneath nearby clouds. You breathe in the perfect air surrounding the vicinity as you notice a presence standing in a marble archway a stone's throw away. He hasn't noticed you yet, but it is your beloved. He gazes softly toward the setting sun where you know you'd see its reflection in his eyes, should you be in his arms. He appears thoughtful, likely pondering the verities of life, and then he breathes soundly out and shifts his weight, noticing you for the first time. You feel shivers down your spine and goosebumps down your arms. This is your beloved, and you can't believe he's chosen you, and that in all the pickings, you found him among millions, practically your perfect match. He's chosen to stay by your side for eternity, and you can't believe your lucky stars. One side of his mouth turns upward, and you wonder what he's thinking. What should he be thinking? Oh, it doesn't really matter. You're set for eternity with this find. It will be the best date night ever, without end. But no, why the mirth in his expression? Perhaps you have a smudge across your forehead, or your hair is woefully out of place, or he's recalling a funny incident. Now your awe turns to curiosity, mixed with adoration. Even with his sideways smirk, he's incredibly handsome, and he's yours for eternity. And you are his. So lucky, so blessed. Did we choose each other before our earthly stay? Did we sign a contract? Did we find each other eons ago and promise we'd meet up again? Did we share similar friendships? Did we prepare together or entertain each other or tease one another? Did we consider family, or were we all friends? Did we know our future children? Did we know the hardships we'd experience and Pinky promised to keep it all together nevertheless? Did we understand exactly what was in our path and promise upon promise to be there for each other no matter what? Did we gather together with our Maker's divine parents to heavenly children? As I think on my next question, he begins to advance in my direction, over a stone bridge and past a bubbling waterfall. I wipe my forehead and situate my hair. As he approaches, I notice the vibrant blue of his sparkling eyes and realize he's upturning the other side of his grin as well. I can't help but probe him as to why the smile. He chuckles for a beat and then satiates my wonder. I was just thinking how I can't believe I have you for all eternity. Marriage, the things most difficult to become the things most rewarding. So I'd like you to try this writing assignment. So this is choosing spouse writing. What does it mean to choose your spouse in trials, in parenting, in autonomy, in career, in religion, in hobby? Write for like 5 minutes or less. Cover each of those points and then do the same thing for you. What does it mean to choose you in trials, in parenting, in autonomy, in career, in religion, in hobby? All right, so that is the end of the second section of I choose him. The next section will be I choose me. So I'll see you there. This is the third section of I choose you, the good choices we make in a lasting marriage. And this is I choose me. So we've talked about I choose God, I choose him, and now I choose me. So let's do a little exercise. Imagine yourself in the following different scenarios. At the checkout stand of the grocery store, at church or work, at a family gathering, at the library, at the beach. Do you see yourself different at each of these places? How different or similar are you at each place? How do you interact with the people? Now think about how concerned you are about what others are thinking about you. Are you too loud at the grocery store, too quiet at the family gathering, or not playful enough at the beach? What does it feel like to think about how others regard you in these situations? In Debbie Ford's book, The Dark Side of the Light Chasers, she calls these different approaches to us-ness as our shadow selves, apart from our conscious selves. They don't always create what we feel is the best image of us. Now, let's isolate one of the identities you thought up. Maybe your quiet self at the library, or your kickback self at the beach, and give that part of you, say, 7 descriptions. For example, there's a part of me I label Beatrice Birdie. She stews and preens and worries and cranes her neck forward, and she persists in doing something, anything useful, even if it's unwelcome. She has a warbly laugh, is socially awkward, easily distraught, and people fawn over her delicateness. Ugh, there is truly this part of me. How might you describe one of your so-called false identities? Take a moment, think about it. Jot down on paper any descriptors you can come up with in these various scenarios. And by the way, if you cannot relate to this, consider yourself mentally lucky, because at one time I was overwhelmed by these differing identities, and I can say now that my identity remains fairly solid. Some of my identities were Overboard Ursula, Bodacious Billy, Nerdy Nelda, Reba Rebellious, Susie Spiritual, Musician Me, Irritated Irma, and Wishful Wanda. What are your alter egos? Stop and jot them down if you need to. Now, let's imagine you have a whole busload of these various identities you've thought up. The whole bus filled with yous. And now say a more controlling part of you has to stop the bus and pull one of yous out of the bus for misbehaving. Give her a talking to while the rest of yous wait. I remember this happening one time where we had to stop when we were in Salt Lake City on a bus, and some dude throws out a peanut butter sandwich and the cop stops us and pulls us over. So I kind of think about that experience. But what's happening in your mind right now if you had to be pulled over because the rest of you had some kind of issue? Is it okay to stop the whole bus just for little old you? Or is nobody paying attention to you being urged off the bus? The problem there is that you're not valuing yourself enough. Or, of course, everyone inside the bus wants to know every detail of what's happening to me inside or outside the bus. Problem with that? Too much attention on you. This is selfishness. Or the healthier attitude. People are interested and concerned, but not burdened by the bus stopping for me. This is the very purpose of this exercise, to let all the facets of you know you are important enough to stop a bus, and that all the facets of you are important and acceptable. As you begin to love and value yourself more, you will find it's actually fun to get all these personalities of me on one bus and imagine all of them coming together for the greater good, me the way God sees me. As one absolutely valuable combined person flexing her arms like Wonder Woman about to run into the battlefield, knowing she's making a huge difference in this world as her best self. So there's this concept based on the Bowen theory called the pseudo-self and the solid self. So you see the two differing selves. The pseudo-self changes like a chameleon based on who is in the room. They are good at people-pleasing, wanting to impress, and to look good. So imagine which of those personas on the bus this was. Then we have our solid self. The solid self is true to yourself. The solid self expresses what you really think, and hopefully in an edifying and uplifting manner. So what does it take to be solid? More like that bus conductor, but not as demanding. What does it take? Well, here are a few ideas. First of all, there's the concept of differentiation. We'll talk much more about this in class 2, but basically, differentiation is choosing to truly be you through a healthy sense of self, and through accompanying dynamics create an interdependent marriage of satisfying give and take. So Jennifer Finlayson Fife says, strength is born of control of self, plus acting out of honesty, plus being knowable. Often, men and women act out of pretense and expectation instead of being at peace with themselves. She also says, a good marriage is all about safety. And then I go a little bit further because safety to me feels kind of funny, the word. So I use the words undefensiveness and openness. So a good marriage is about safety and the capacity for being known. One of the first exercises that I had to do to be okay with me loving myself and treating myself better was coming up with my Bill of Rights. So this may sound funny, but if you've never done it, this is going to be an eye-opener for you. So I have a right to feel welcome in my own home. This is what, as I sat down with a piece of paper, I'm realizing, what are my rights? I don't know. To feel welcome in my own home? I have a right to express my opinions. Really? I do? I have a right to be wrong. I have a right to be indulgent and high maintenance. Ooh. I have a right to own my space. I have a right to self-care. I have a right to be grouchy. I have a right to not always be busy. So, take this seriously, if you will. Write down your Bill of Rights, especially those that elicit an emotional response, like to be happy in your own house. That's okay. That is okay for me to be happy. Do whatever works for you, though. Then, after you're able to say, I have a right to do these things, then you can understand how you can make boundaries work. So, the way I like to think about boundaries is if you made a cake and flopped the batter onto a cookie sheet, what would happen? Well, I've done this before, and I'll tell you what, it splays out, and eventually you come to a hard, crispened edge. The edge is just kind of crunchy and not formed very well at all. So, boundaries are for, of, and about you. This means you don't let your cake flop onto your spouse's cake, making their cake hold yours up. And I will talk a lot more about boundaries in class 6, but I just have to put it out there that if you can put out a boundary for the things that you think that you need based on your Bill of Rights, then you're able to give yourself the self-care that you need to be loving of yourself. So, and I've got a great formula that I will share in class 6. So don't forget that. That's about boundaries and very helpful. But next, I want to show you the wagon analogy. So in marriage, we have two covered wagons that come together. And if you come together and everyone's doing good, this is interdependence. Each wagon is well stocked and their journey would be better together. Think about the pioneers who came across the plains, and some of them were well stocked, some of them were not. They give and take happily. They enjoy the grub and dancing to the fiddle around the campfire at the end of a long day. Now let's look at dependence. With dependence, one wagon severely lacks supplies. They aren't in fair trade. The dependent traveler may have to go get help, regroup, and hopefully make it to the valley. The third is independence. This is pioneer woman mode. She stalks her wagon so we won't mooch off others. With fierce determination, fortitude, and resourcefulness, she makes it to the valley despite frostbitten toes. Great example of this in pioneer history is Mary Fielding Smith. Look her up if you want an awesome story about someone who is a pioneer woman. And then the last is codependence. And this term codependence is kind of passé now, but basically if you hear about codependence, in this scenario, we're going to say two covered wagons are meeting up and neither wagon knows what's inside the other one, but they hope it's good because each doesn't have enough. They limp along, leaning on each other. When one is removed, they both fall. They simply can't make it to the valley without further support. So this is this dependence and codependence and interdependence is based around boundaries, because you're able to say what you need and then have the self-care that you need without having to be propped up by the other. And it also helps you be able to set your self-care by saying, I am going to stand alone and not lean on someone else for my happiness. This will be my happiness alone. So here's an interesting quote from Maurice Harker of Life Changing Services. He said, if you think boundaries are silly and unnecessary, put one out there to see what happens. If your spouse rebels and pushes your boundaries, you needed it. If he says, sure, I can allow that because I love you and I want your best, then boundaries are silly and unnecessary. When it feels awkward and uncomfortable to create and maintain boundaries for your own protection, you are probably doing it right. It's going to be uncomfortable. And you wouldn't need to do it if the other person was truly functioning like a friend. This is about reclaiming you. These boundaries are for you getting the self-care that you need to be a whole, complete person yourself. Also, another way that you choose yourself is by stopping the blame shame game. Blame meaning someone else is at fault for this, shame, I am at fault for this. It just doesn't build either of you up to be playing the blame shame game. I know, it's easier said than done, right? I like this quote by Roger Allen. This is about just being okay with yourself no matter what. So it's called I'm Not Okay, and That Is Okay. If you could really accept that you weren't okay, you could stop proving that you were okay. And if you could stop proving that you were okay, you could get it that it's okay to not be okay. And if you could get it that it's okay to not be okay, you could get it that you're okay just the way you are. You're okay. Okay? So that's about accepting yourself. Just being okay with the way you are. Don't blame, don't shame. Just accept how you are and move on with life. And I also have to say, though, that you are greater than rubies. Everyone's greater than rubies. In Proverbs 31:10, we hear, who can find a virtuous woman, for her price is far above rubies. I once asked my teen daughter, if I had a pile of rubies on one side and you on the other, which one would be more valuable? She knew rubies were special because I had given her a ring belonging to my mother that her boyfriend had given her ages ago, and emphasized the care she must take for the heirloom ring. So my daughter thought for a moment and concluded she would be more valuable. Yay! I further explained, in God's eyes, seeing as we are only one spiritual generation away from godhood, we are fabulously valuable to Him. She turned to me in awe and asked, 1 generation? Yes, indeed. I could feel the spirit of her understanding dawn of her intrinsic worth. Loving yourself equal to loving others is a cause greater than your own, which brings you love and abundance of joy. So giving of yourself is loving yourself because you are then receiving joy. It doesn't take much to keep you on your side of the love line because you'll already be approaching the level of God's love. So true confidence comes from self-love, which is really loving God. When you know you are truly His divine offspring, you have a solid confidence knowing you are like Him. When you truly know you love God, you truly love yourself. So, I'd like to read this thing called Yoked in Your Wills and see if you've ever felt this tug of war before. I am enough. Until I really need Him. Then I'm back to being enough. Then I lean on Him wholeheartedly until things change for the better. When you hit rock bottom, you realize you've been doing it alone. You surrender to God. Really surrender. He gives your will back to you and asks you to define it. You start to, but it's tough, so you hand it back. He says, you must find out who you are yourself. You gain idea of your identity, so you hand your will back to Him. Then He says, I'm blessing you through others. Here they are. You appreciate the support you graciously receive as you redefine yourself with others, until you feel stuck and really work on who you are. You humbly hand your will back to Him, knowing you are written on His heart, and He says, let's do this thing together, equally yoked. You say, I'm in. He says, I'm equally invested in you and won't steer you wrong. You say, I'm feeling good about who I am and who you are. He says, then shoot. What do you want in your God-centeredness? You express clearly what you want, having righteous desires, and He says, is that all? Don't you think I'm good for more? So you set off, right foot, left foot, until He stops you because it's not in your/his best interest. Or you realize you love this, and He loves that you love this. Few there be that find this yokedness, but He is eager for all His children to share in it in His omnipresent way. I would like you to take 5 minutes for this writing assignment. What would it look like if you handed your will over to God? Really handed it over to Him. Take that 5 minutes. Think about what it would look like to be that meek and humble, to just hand your will to Him and say, I'll do what you say. Because to me, that is part of choosing me, is knowing how to choose yourself with God intertwined. That is the end of the section, I choose me. And the next section will be, I choose us. Hi, this is the 4th section of I Choose You, the good choices we make in a lasting marriage. This is I choose us. So we've already talked about I choose God, I choose Him, meaning our spouse, I choose me, I choose us, is what we're now talking about. So I'd like to tell you a story about when my husband and I were first dating. We were pretty close to being engaged, and my roommate, this was in college, we lived in an apartment complex, and my husband and I lived in the same complex, and his roommate and my roommate challenged my husband and I, at that time my boyfriend and I, to a basketball duo. And so I was a little bit uncertain myself because I hadn't played basketball since 8th grade. And my husband had played, but supposedly his roommate was even better than my husband at basketball. And my roommate told me that she was pretty sportsy too. So I didn't think we really had a chance. So imagine my surprise when we started playing against them, and we were actually doing pretty good. And we got to where we thought we might be almost winning. And I thought, this feels really good. I like this feeling of being with this guy, and we feel like we're succeeding. We can do this thing. And sure enough, we pulled it off, and we did beat this duo against in basketball, and we won them. And I thought, awesome, we can do these kind of hard things. Against the forces against us were insurmountable, it seemed. So sometimes in marriage, that's the way I feel, is like, do you remember that winning feeling when we were able to pull that off when we just didn't think that we could? Well, I go back to that same feeling and remember, we can do this. We can win. So some of the hang-ups 20 years later, after being at that time just almost engaged, and then now 20 years after being together, I found that I was choosing my kids first over my spouse. And I was thinking I was choosing God first, but I was really just kind of dumping it on God and not really choosing Him first and saying, he'll take care of it. I don't have to do anything. I'll just keep having faith in him. So I was putting him first, but in a way that wasn't really working because I wasn't doing my part of things. So I was doing a lot of dumping. So I realized that I had to do some work on us. So, like I said, my priorities were my children first, and then my husband came next. And even though I would hate to have admitted it, God came third. So I want to tell you about 3 kinds of relationships that we can find ourselves in. There's the carefree relationship. This is fun and careless, and all the efforts are to this end, fun. There's the careful relationship. This is where we have safety and security and comfort as the goal. But the problem here is that the other spouse has to become the answer to unmet needs they didn't create and don't even know how to solve. The third kind of relationship is the caring marriage. This is a marriage of personal growth and development that creates a promising, lasting relationship thanks to each other. In a caring marriage, they grow together because the couple has a bigger capacity to love, because you work on yourself to target your own disowned relational baggage and open the couple to receiving more of each other. Those 3 kinds of relationships were penned and coined by Jason Gaddis, love expert. I'd like to introduce you, if you haven't already seen this, to the relationship grid. And this threw a whole lot of perspective and light onto what I was doing in my part of the relationship in our marriage. So if you look, you'll see that we have 4 quadrants, and in the top 2 quadrants we have grandiosity. This is one up, being better than the other person. Below that we have shame, and that is in the 1 down area. This is just not good enough. I'll never be good enough for you. On the left hand side we have the walled off, or the love avoidant, and on the right hand side we have the boundaryless, or love dependent. And then the happy place in the middle, where we have that caring relationship, is flourishing. So we have flourish in the middle. So grandiosity at the top and boundaryless to the right leaves us in the quadrant of control and anger. Grandiosity above, and then walled off to the left, where you're love avoidant, that's passive aggressive with indifference and a you're not worthy attitude. The walled off on the left and the shame, the 1 down below, in that quadrant is resignation, withdrawal, and depression. And then in that lower left quadrant we have the mixture of boundaryless and 1 down. That is the place of desperation and manipulation. And I know I've been in all of these at one time or other, but I probably started off our relationship in the resignation, withdrawal, and depression, in the walled off and shame. And then there've been times I've gone up to the control and anger, but we'll probably spend one of these quadrants most of our energy. And we're probably not in the same quadrant as one another, just because oftentimes we're just different in how we are in a relationship. So the 1 up is the entitled taker. They are the hiders. The 1 down is the victim. You owe me. The walled off is avoiding. I'm better than you. The boundaryless is enmeshed and in the thoughts of the spouse. So they're just always in a place where is not the healthiest place for them to be in their mind. And I was totally this way, where I was totally in my husband's thoughts, and it did not serve me. The goal is to be honest and opened, not enmeshed and entitled. So as you look at this grid, where are you most often? It's kind of interesting to think of where you might be and why it explains why you do what you do. Then the next question, where is your spouse? That might even be easier to see than yourself. Where does your spouse hang out on this relationship grid? So let's talk about strategies for a flourishing relationship. And in a nutshell, it's do the opposite of wherever you are on the grid, do the opposite so you can get more into a central place. So 1, come out of shame and grandiosity to a place of healthy self-esteem. 2, if you're boundaryless, establish or reset your boundaries and remember that you are enough and you do matter. 3, if you are walled off, express your feelings and ask for what you need. And I know that is way easier said than done, and that takes a lot of work to be able to be okay and feel safe enough to express yourself. 4 is to respond with generosity. 5, respect each other. 6, have empathy for each other and for yourself. 7, cherish your partner. 8, stay connected and protected in your relationship. 9, shift from complaint to request and curiosity. Don't those latter two sound better than complaining? And 10, speak out with love and moderation. Again, sometimes easier said than done. Finally, the 11th point, be honest about your vulnerabilities. And I don't love the word vulnerabilities, though everyone talks about it. I like the word open. To me, open seems more empowered and strong in yourself. Here's something to ponder. For one up or the unhealthy pride, seek humility. For one down or the woe is me, seek meekness, which is being teachable, willing to do something different. Be willing to let them really matter to you, even if it's not reciprocated the way you like. It's more about the investment than the approval. So as you think about that grid, stop being so concerned about the other person and where they are on the grid, and be more concerned about yourself and how you are investing in them also being happy. Of course, love your neighbor or your spouse as yourself. You want both of you to be happy, but see where you are on the grid and why you're doing what you're doing. A woman doesn't want to be stronger than a man unless she's weak too and wants to control him. Weak people control other people than themselves. So choosing versus controlling. Instead of truly choosing, we often go to controlling. I know I went to that quadrant myself just because it's a safer place to be. People want control over choosing and being chosen. It's our primitive brain's job to keep us safe, which it thinks control will accomplish. How do you know that you're being over-controlling? And I can identify with all these. Exhaustion, identity issues, comparison, frustration, lack of hope. So you might think, well, what's on the other side of control? Well, it might just be kind of throwing your hands up and quitting, right? But in the middle of control and quitting is surrender, which means you still have a part of it. You have the part that you can do yourself. You relinquish control beyond your own. Accountability for controlling means you manage your sense of self, not the others. Otherwise, the wife overfunctions to regulate her husband's control over her to gain a sense of control. And some of these ideas that are about the control and the relationship grid I've got from Jennifer Finlayson-Fife, who is a sex therapist. So some of the things that we can do to get that sense of self that's more healthy and more empowered, have boundaries and self-care. Know your worth and value. Your worth is different than being worthy. Worth is absolute and unending. Worthy is based upon your righteousness, following the commandments, loving God and your neighbor. It's nice to know that distinction. Loving yourself like your spouse. Uniqueness and character is good. Present-mindedness. Self-soothing and self-compassion. Knowing what others think of you is their business, not yours. Rising above inevitable failures and seeing how they refine you. Contributing to a cause greater than your own. These are some of the ways that we can establish a sense of self that helps us to be more healthy. So now let me show you my imbalanced love scale. Here's how I used to place my priorities in my life. Kids got 20%. This is out of 100. And this is my my relationship donut chart. Not a pie chart, it's a donut chart. So kids got the 20%. Housework, 17%. Spouse, 17%. God, 14%. Church assignment, 11%. My job, 10%. Me, a dismal 7%. Just putting everything else above me, not refilling my cup. And then at 4%, talents and hobbies. So let me show you what it changed to. Now here's the love scale that I like to work by now. That is God truly first at 20%. And these are relative, like really it'd be like 1,000% for God, but we're just on the 100% scale. So God at 20%, me and my spouse at 17, but I put myself first, even though we're both loving each other as ourselves, because I have to have something to draw from to be able to give. So I have to put me first there. And then it equals out by what I give to my spouse also. The kids are at 14%. My church assignment is at 11%. My job is at 10%. The housework is 7%, and the talents and hobbies are 4%. And I want to point out that it's not necessarily time. It's more where you're prioritizing. Where would you put effort? If you had to drop something, what would go first? What would go before the other? So think of it like that. And I want you to think, how would you fill in your love scale? How would these different categories be allocated based on what you're doing, and how would you like that to change? So right now they're all equal in this scale, but I'd like you to kind of go through and think, how would I do this if I were to put them first? Or how am I doing it, and what would be ideal? Next, I'd like to talk about the relation vibration. The soul of man and woman is the union between God and spirit. Do you believe that? The 5 elements of full relation vibration are intimacy of mind, heart, spirit, body, and soul. These are the 5 things that we're going to be talking about. So in a relation to yourself, we might say that you would have a vibration of spirit promptings, of body awareness, of mind downloads, of heart messages, of soul stirrings. This is being in vibration with yourself, having a good vibe, knowing yourself, which also can take a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of attention. And consequently, paying attention to you helps you to be able to also relate this to your spouse, which we'll talk about in a minute. So first I want to go through what it might look like, what it feels or sounds like in this relation to yourself. Spirit promptings might be, your friend needs you. Body awareness may be, some foods don't work for you. Mind downloads, here's a perfect idea. Heart messages, you're doing just fine. And soul stirrings, get a different job. So let me explain this vibration a little better. And now we're going to relate this to our spouse. Let's say you have radio waves or a Wi-Fi signal that go through the air and you can't see it and you don't really know it's there. It's present and productive until interrupted or not accessed. It must be tuned into. This might sound like something's not right, or something's very right, or it's knowing without knowing why. It's unexplained tenseness and anxiety. It's over empathizing with someone. So I'd like you to look at the next few pictures and just tell me, what do you think in their look are you sensing the vibe of these people? So first, what do you think this guy is sending off? Like maybe determined? What do you think? This lady, how about her? To me, she has the vibe of contentedness. This lady, I don't know, she looks a little pensive, like she's expecting something. What do you think? What's she putting off? So in relation to our spouse, let's think about what the spirit promptings, the body awareness, the mind downloads, the heart messages, and soul stirrings might be between us. And let me explain this vibe like you might have heard of in several things like music. Like I do guitar and piano and sing, and when I am accompanying somebody or singing with someone, you have to kind of be on the same page. You intuit what they're going to do, and you just kind of know. It's like an inner knowing of what they're going to do, and you make that flow together. How about sports? I've played volleyball where you can just totally feel that feeling where you know who's going to get the ball. I love volleyball, so it's really fun to know they're getting it, and I just have a feeling that the person next to me is getting it, or I totally got this vibe that I am all over getting this ball. Or in our conversations where you just feel that vibe of what's going on, good or bad or uncertain. You know what I'm talking about, right? This vibe is what we're talking about, and this is a vibe in marriage that I'd like you to pay attention to. So here's what it might feel or sound like in marriage. Spirit promptings might be, it's going to work out, even when you think it absolutely won't. Body awareness, wow, attraction. mind downloads. We've got a plan. Like, it just clicks. Maybe you're planning for a vacation or something, or for your future together, or whatever. You've got that plan. Heart message. He's such a good dad. And you're sitting there watching him, and he's just being such a tender, loving dad. And soul stirrings. We're on the same page, and you just get that feeling, that vibe. Can your souls be unified with God through spirit, body, mind, and heart, all wrapped up in the strongest essence of you through the privilege of knowing and feeling one another deeply? This is like those older couples when you just know. They know what each other is thinking. They know each other so well because they've had all that time to develop this relation vibration. What do you think you could do to be in tune to the vibration of each other's spirit, body, mind, heart, and soul? Here are some ideas. Meditation, together and alone. Honestly expressing how you feel. Observation and confirmation. So this is like when you observe something and then you find out, yep, I was right. Learning together, maybe classes and podcasts. Outside help, maybe therapy or mentoring that helps you to get on that same page. Get to know you questions, yes, even after 25 years. Worshipping, together and alone. Forgiveness and repentance. Practicing respect and compassion. Working together, recreating together. Physical intimacy and not just sexual. Think about how that all wraps together. These are just a few ideas, but how it wraps together for that relation vibration. So, now I would like you to take the US challenge. So, I would like you to think of the top 10 things you like to do with your spouse. And so it's only going to take you a couple minutes, so just take this assignment and just put down those things that you like to do the most with your spouse. And then the top 10 things your spouse likes to do with you. And then I would like you to check with your spouse and find out if you're right. Does he really like dancing? Does he? Then do at least one of these things for each of you in the next month. So that's 2 things. One thing you like to do, one thing your spouse likes to do. Just do that one thing per month. And maybe you can increase that, but start out with the one thing. I'll tell you some things that I like to do. I'll tell you 3 things I like to do. I like to ride to the park on our bike, play frisbee, and then eat French silk pie. I mean, seriously, how fun, right? I like on our Sunday afternoon to play Room and Cube or Boggle or Upwards. Now, my husband doesn't love that, but he'll do it with me. Chatting over a picnic at what I call awesome lunch spots. I love doing that. And then, bonus, any day, pickleball. I love to play pickleball, super fun. So that is the end of this section, I choose us. Our next section will be I choose why. I choose why. This is the 5th section of I choose you, the good choices we make in a lasting marriage. We have talked about I choose God, I choose him, meaning your spouse, I choose me, I choose us, and here we are at I choose why. As children of light, we have the obligation of making this world a holier and happier place for our having lived in it. Continually ask yourselves, do you see any light in that? Be vigilant in seeking for and following true light, and you will receive more light, becoming brighter and brighter every day. May we continually let our light shine, the Lord's light, which is in us, shine. So here is my why for even doing this course. So when I was going to college, and if this is your house, thank you. So when I was going to college, I passed by this house and I saw a family out front playing football. And they looked like they're having so much fun. And I just sat there and my heart just felt like it was just swelling up. And I was so excited to one day have my family that I could have together playing football on my front lawn. So we have played football on our side lawn, and I love the image. That just makes me feel so warm inside to think about us being together, playing together like that. But if I don't have a marriage, I will not have those kind of experiences with a family to be able to play together and have fun together. So that is my why for doing courses that can help families to be together so that we can always be together. And what a wonderful blessing that is. So a marriage has to be strong to keep a family strong, right? Well, I could tell you a story about hiking the peak behind this house, but that is a story for another day. No success can compensate for failure in the home. And to me, that meant that I had to be a good mom. But there's also failure in marriage. And I didn't realize that till years down the road when I realized I had been neglecting my marriage. So let me tell you about the motivational triad. The brain likes. So for a happy brain, we want to have avoiding pain, seeking pleasure, and conserving energy. This is from Brooke Castillo. So we'll come back to that in a minute, but I want to tell you about the influencers of marriage. So there's a book called Influencer, The Power to Change Anything. This is by Carrie Patterson, Joseph Grenny, and a few of the other authors you see there on the screen. And you can change anything if you have the right motivation, ability, and personal, social, and structural systems set up. So for personal motivation, you make the undesirable desirable. For personal ability, you surpass your limits of what you're doing now. For social motivation, you harness peer pressure so that you can make the changes. And then for social ability, you find strength in numbers. For structural motivation, you design rewards and demand accountability. And then for structural ability, you change your environment until you can make it work. So here's an outline of how you can see this put in a way that you can fill in things for yourself. So in marriage, here's an example. We're going to talk about setting up a weekly date, because there was a time when we did not have a weekly date. And here were some of the things that motivated me and some of the things that we have to do to be able to keep our weekly date going. So the personal motivation, I like to eat at a good place. That just makes me excited. Cosa Vida, I like that, fresh food. The personal ability for me is to set it in stone on the calendar when we're going to have that date. I'm not going to be doing anything else at that time. I've set it aside. The social motivation is that I talk about it at family council. Everyone knows we're going to be on our date. It's been set aside that people know where we're going to be, and my family's okay with that. The kids, they'll have taken care of the things that they need to. And then the social ability is that we can invite friends. That always makes you do something, to invite along someone else to do stuff with you. The structural motivation, for me, I love this idea of putting together a date caddy. And inside the date caddy, I stuck some plastic utensils, some bottles of water for us, a little tablecloth, some napkins, some chocolate, because we can't be, at the end of a meal without chocolate, right? And then a date book, like a book on marriage that we like to talk about on our dates. And that is structurally a way that I can just grab it and be so easy to leave out of the house and go. And then, if needed, you can have an accountability buddy to be able to say, yep, we did it. There are several people in a week that I will report to and say, hey, guess what? I did my goal. So if that is something you would need, you can report to somebody and say that you did it. And then the structural ability is that sometimes you have to change the environment or whatever you're doing. And we found that lunch on Friday works better than dinner on Friday. So structurally, we are much better to do lunch than dinner. And that's what works for us. Also, we've been wanting to establish and have been working on a 20-minute daily talk to be able to communicate, to be able to connect daily. So for me, the personal motivation is a foot rub. Oh yeah. And then the personal ability for me is that to be able to have this 20-minute talk, I have to have my stuff done by 9:00 p.m. Just have it done. Be ready to finish off and give myself to my spouse at that time. The social motivation would be Our family prays and reads scripture together at 9 p.m. every night, and I make sure that everyone has everything taken care of for the next day at that point. The social ability is that the family is on board. They know, okay, mom and dad need their time. They're going to be doing their 20-minute talk, so let them do their stuff and don't interrupt them. The structural motivation is that we find a relaxing spot on a perfect place on a couch that works for us. And then the structural motivation also is that, this is kind of funny, but my husband likes to watch the news, sports recap of the day, and if we're not done by the time that news program starts, we have not got our 20 minutes in. And so we kind of have this boundary of where we can fit this in. So that kind of makes us do it because we know that he's going to go watch his sports if we're not done. And then the structural ability is that sometimes we do have to change the time or the place as needed to be able to make it work. If we're on vacation or if something comes up, we might need to change something as needed. So what can you work on in your marriage? How can these influencers work in your favor? What could you fill in here in this chart that I've given you to be able to figure out how to make something work that you've been wanting to make work? Now I want to talk about the influencers of the people in your life. Daniel Amen compares negative affect people with ants. If you've ever picked up a container with ants crawling on it, within seconds they crawl into your body, where you then try to brush them off. Ants give you ants, A-N-T, automatic negative thoughts. He challenges, list the 10 people you spend the most time with. Make a note of how much they support you and the ways in which you would like to be supported more. Certainly stay clear of ants. So in marriage, make sure you surround yourself with positive people who are making a good influence on you. So who in your life, on screen and off, is affecting you the most? So Daniel Amen said 10 people. I say at least 5. I've heard the statistic that the 5 people who are in your most influence you the most. That makes sense, right? And some of them are online. So just stop for a second and write down who those top 5 might be. And then what's one negative influencer you can let go of? I put down statistics because sometimes it's like, well, a married couple is supposed to fill in the blank. This is the thing that they're supposed to do. And sometimes if I can just say, let go of the statistics because that is influencing me negatively, I will. So what's one thing you could let go of? How about one positive influencer you can increase? For me, there are some podcasts that both my husband and I can get on board with and say, did you hear that podcast by Jennifer from Lace and Fife, who we both agree on? And we both don't always agree. It's most of the time we don't agree. So when we do agree on one, it's fun to say, hey, listen to this one. Gandhi says, be the change you want to see in others. So take care of yourself. So as I said, pause and answer these few questions now. Just take you a minute. Next, I would like to talk about, or actually, here's a lovely quote. When you treat your spouse well, it's in your very best interest. The degree to which you respect and love your spouse is equal to the degree to which you respect and love yourself. You have the opportunity to learn to treat yourself better, and when you treat both of you better, everyone is better. When you take the influences in your life and put them towards treating both of you better, it's only going to be a win-win. So what is your why? What do you want more of in marriage? What does it look like? If you could wave a magic wand and have whatever you want, what would that look like? What does it feel like? So here's some tips to creating and accomplishing your why. Use all of your senses to envision what it is you want. What you see, what you hear, what you touch, what you taste, and what you smell. Do this for a few minutes. Try to just really feel it, because your brain doesn't know the difference. When you are sticking these things of your senses into your brain, it doesn't even know that it's not real. And then make it a habit 2 times a day, morning and night, to be able to think of this thing, whatever you want more of in your marriage, or in anything in life, but we're talking about marriage here. So then next we have gratitude, even for the things before we get them. I'm so grateful for this good thing in marriage. That really hasn't happened yet, but you're expecting it to. That is called faith. Next, imagine everyone living from their higher selves. Imagine you're everything in the best case scenario. What would that look like? And why not? Again, that's furthering your faith. And have faith that things happen just right. They are happening just right, even if it seems like they're not and haven't been for years. You can change that thought into saying, they are just happening just right. Nurture your why like a growing thing. Your love and your relationship is like a plant, and it does need nurturing to become something great. And now think about Indiana Jones. This is the last crusade, where he has to go and get the goblet that has the magic serum, or maybe he dips it in water, and he comes back and he brings it to his dad who's dying. And as he looks into this ravine, this chasm that he has to cross to get to the store on the other side, he's like, I can't see where to go. But he has that focus. His dad is his focus, and he has to get to the other side of this ravine. He just steps onto that forward nothingness, and he finds that foothold underneath him that is a plank that was integrated into all the scenery behind, so we couldn't see it. He was indistractable. Are you indistractable? Where is your focus in the things that you want to change or have better? So think about the thing that you want to change or make better, and think about on the first screen what you have now. Think about it in the senses, envision it just like it is. Fairly easy because you already do have it. The next screen is see yourself doing something productive about the negative parts. So you're actually doing something, a motion or something that you're reaching for something, or you're tasting something. See yourself doing something productive about the parts you don't like. And then see yourself having the thing you want, accompanied by the feelings in as many senses as you can, to let your brain think that you actually already have it. This is the power of manifesting. To be able to just bring it into existence because you have enough faith and you've taught your brain that it's coming. So we just need to talk about the marital dream board, because this also encapsulates everything we've talked about for your why. And I got this concept from Kirk Duncan of 3 Key Elements. Here's some ideas on this screen that show you what you can put your vision board or dream board items onto your board about, and we're talking about marriage here. So in crafting our whys, the brain works in the affirmative. So don't think of a pink bus. No matter what you do, don't think about a pink bus. So you thought of a pink bus, didn't you? Because our brain works in the affirmative. So if your why is, I want to improve our marriage so we don't have contention, you're thinking about contention, right? So that doesn't work. So instead we change it to the affirmative. I want to improve our marriage so we can feel love and peace in our lives. And the brain takes in love and peace. So as you craft the marital dream board, remember to craft it in the positive. In that motivational triad, we had the brain liking avoiding pain, conserving energy, and seeking pleasure. And that's what the marital dream board is based on, is seeking pleasure. So as we remember that your brain seeks pleasure, fill in squares of your marital dream board. And I'm going to give you an example of mine. So here is what might be on my marital dream board of the things that I want to have in my marriage. So, and remember to review the dream board morning and night to remind your brain of how you are seeking pleasure in marriage. For 2 minutes in the morning, 2 minutes at night, remember all the senses. The first square, I have this lovely restaurant where you're going to go on your date. So the idea here is to have a weekly date. 2 hours, no distractions, no talk of kids. And think about what that feels like in all the senses. The second square I have here has a tennis ball. And the idea behind this is that we're going to do a sport once a week. Bikes, tennis, walking, dancing, whatever. Imagine yourself doing whatever that thing is. The third one is the 20-minute talk that I was saying that we're trying to instill better into our marriage. Take time at night just to talk about whatever, even the kids. So what does that feel like? Where are you? Like in my example, are we kicking back, doing foot rubs? What are we doing? What is the motivation? What's the feeling behind that? The next one is to plan a big trip. One big trip a year, no kids. And look at how cool that picture is. Doesn't that elicit the emotion of just being floating? This floating bed on the water in the sunset? Wow, that really elicits a feeling. The next is praying hands, and this represents God first, worshiping together, praying, attending spiritual places, studying God's word together as a couple. How does that feel? Doesn't that feel awesome? The next one is therapy as needed. They're holding hands here. I mean, isn't that pretty? Therapy can be a wonderful thing. It's helped my husband and I so much. The next one, we have this beach picture. Looks awesome, doesn't it? And this is a monthly trip. Do it up good. Is your time, effort, and money worth eternity? Oh yeah. To me, it's totally worth it. The next one, you see some pencils and stuff. So maybe that doesn't elicit enough emotion for you, but it's to represent learning together, having a couples class, studying a book, taking a course, attending a seminar or retreat. What would that feel like? Think about the fun time you might have together as you go through a day taking a couples class like that. And then finally, the last thing shows 2 feet together because we're talking about regular sex. And a minimum should be scheduled for both of your happiness and connectedness. So that is what all of the meaning behind the squares are. But again, here's what my actual dream board would look like. All eliciting these really good feelings. And I review it morning and night to remind my brain of what I am seeking the pleasure in marriage about. So your assignment is to fill in your own dream board for your marriage. What would you like to see? What elicits an emotion? Find pictures, fill it in. This is a great assignment. I think you'll have a lot of fun with it. Russell Nelson says, as grateful partners look for the good in each other and sincerely pay compliments to one another, wives and husbands will strive to become the persons described in those compliments. I think that's the essence of your why, that when you see what it is that you want and you envision it in the other person and treat them that way, your why is going to become a reality and you can expect miracles. So that is the end of the section, I choose why, and our final and concluding section will be, I choose love. Hi, this is the 6th section of the class, I choose you, the good choices we make in a lasting marriage. Now I've got my heart earrings in, I've got my love oil in my hair, I've got my red heart shirt on, so we are good to go. So we have talked about I choose God, I choose Him, I choose me, I choose us, I choose why, I choose love. So that is this class, and I want to start out by telling you about the blue whale. Did you know a human can easily stand in the heart of a blue whale? A person can even swim through the arteries of this 100-foot, 150-ton whale. That is a big heart. The heart is the strongest muscle in the body. The heart is the only muscle of the body that can't repair itself alone. The heart may beat up to 3 billion times during a person's lifespan. While I read the scriptures, I like to circle little red hearts around every word heart, and here are some of the words describing hearts. Affections of, all thy, broken, corrupted, desire of, full purpose of, glorified, grieving, holiness of, imaginations of, lift up your, love with all your, meek and lowly of, pour in, pure, rejoicing, set upon riches, thankful, wielding, wicked, yielding, heart. The most oft repeated heart I find refers to the hardness of the heart, not so good. It's interesting that Scripture defines a person by their heart. We might describe someone as big-hearted, good-hearted, or having a heart of gold. Or we speak of people with faint hearts, conniving hearts, hearts of stone, or wise hearts. Have you ever had that experience where you feel love or loved and your heart seems to swell? It's like the Grinch in Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Our hearts can become 3 sizes bigger. Though a heart can't repair itself, it is through the atonement of Jesus Christ that true and lasting healing becomes a vital opportunity for a change of heart. Perhaps not so much that a person could stand up in it, but so that true joy is left standing. So let's define love. I'm sure there's like hundreds of definitions, but here are the 5 that I'm using. An intense feeling of deep affection. Attention freely given without expectation of reward. The bridge between sorrow and joy. Awe. What you can't have and what you are so lucky to have at the same time. Remembering with fondness. I once read a story about the bee tree. 2 children living on the American frontier were attempting to capture some honey so they could impress their parents back at the log cabin. They were about to reach into the hollow space of the tree and grab the honey when a bear came along and scared them up the tree. When they finally made it safely home, their father returned to the tree, smoked out the bees, cut the tree above and below the hive, and returned with the heart of the tree trunk holding their bounty of sweet honey and nectar. Now hold that thought. Is it possible, when we strip away the influence of our environment, experiences, and relationships, that we've had intrinsic instructions of love instilled into our very core? Scriptures often reference the heart being written upon. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel, saith the Lord. I will put my law in their inward parts and write it in their hearts. That's Jeremiah chapter 31. The Apostle Paul says, Ye are our epistle, written in our hearts, written not with ink, but with the Spirit of the living God, not in tables of stone, but in the fleshy tables of the heart. It seems the heart serves as an organ that is capable of holding deeply held beliefs, such as Christ being written on our very hearts, and we are written on his palms. The Lord says in Isaiah 49:16, Behold, I have graven thee upon the palms of my hands. Thy walls are continually before me. Since he has been written in our hearts and our names are written on his palms, we both really can't forget each other. Because of what is written in our hearts, we know enough to make it back to the Lord with both pieces of our engraved heart locket intact. Just like that father cutting the heart of honey out of the tree and bringing it home, our Heavenly Father hopes to do the very same. Touch our hearts like liquid gold so that he can guide us safely home. We know enough. Our life experiences and relationships are the very aspects that bring us into alignment with who we really are and who we're becoming, if we just let them. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can break my heart. How many times do we cast words thoughtlessly at others? Our loved ones can push our buttons again and again, which become a perfect opportunity to practice love like Christ's. When you agree to be a follower of Christ, you agree to take his name upon you, that you may always have his Spirit to be with you, which requires not casting stones. So try this experiment. The next time your spouse pushes your buttons, ask yourself, what is this person here to teach me about myself? Who is this person really as their true, higher self? And how would I really revere them in this light? Can I look beyond my pride and forgive them, knowing we each just sin differently? What is their hidden need? Usually love disguised as hurt. Hurt people hurt people. And finally, can I practice unconditional love at this moment by asking God to fill my heart with his love? I have found when I accomplish these 5 quick thoughts, my heart is filled with a magnified love for them that couldn't happen any other way. Unconditional love means approaching any of God's children with empty hands, no stones to cast, all based on the love and example of the rock of our Redeemer. So let's talk about mirroring needs in marriage. A spouse becomes personalized in your own growth and development on your journey here on earth. Some say that we marry people who we think are going to satisfy an unmet need. We put a lot of expectations on them to meet these needs, then become frustrated when they don't. Consider a spouse as a mirror to yourself. What most upsets you about your spouse is something that really upsets you about yourself. You might have to think about that for a second. I once heard of a lady who despised the toothpaste her husband flung on their vanity mirror each morning while brushing his teeth. It took the guy dying for her to realize it was her own spit splayed on the mirror each morning. She was really hating something about herself, and that's what really goes around and around in a relationship. So a great book for this mirroring concept is called The Breakthrough Experience by John DeMartini. So loving a screaming toddler. I remember the first time I realized I was loving conditionally and mirroring what I didn't want with my spouse. In the middle of a heated conversation, these thoughts hit me. I expect him to love me unconditionally, which I'm not doing for him by creating the expectation that he should love by dropping expectations. Whoa. Also, to love Christ means to let him be as he will and not take it personally. I can be perfectly okay when he is not. My being true to myself doesn't have any conditions on him. Also, I get in his way of figuring out his own stuff when I argue back. I can keep to the topic at hand or shelve it if I'm not feeling God with us. So think about it. When toddlers are crabby and inconsolable, you don't punish them for feeling out of control with their emotions. You pick them up and cuddle them and allow them space to settle. A spouse can be like a toddler who can't make sense of his emotion, and he takes it out on the closest participant in his life, his wife. He may have experienced emotional abandonment in his youth. It's funny how a person marries another person they hope will solve what wasn't fixed before marriage. A wife can learn to hold to her boundaries while honestly seeking to love her imperfect husband as herself, resulting in charity and a heart filled with peace and gratitude. Everything changed for me that day when I saw things as they really were. So I continue to work on problems and see them for what they are. Remember, divorce doesn't solve a problem, it stops a solution. And if that solution means creating something completely new, so be it. John, by the way, sums up charity, or the pure love of Christ, nicely. Charity means love of Christ, love for Christ, and love like Christ. Love in its many forms. Even when Christ wanted to be alone, people sought him out, and they wanted to be around him. Did not our heart burn within us, said the men who walked unknowingly alongside Jesus after his resurrection? Christ had truly mastered love. So let's think about charity in marriage. What does it take for you to feel this kind of love in marriage? Well, can you accomplish a swelling heart and a heart burning of love, even in the day-to-day and in the conflicts? I believe it requires a redirect. You can still address unpleasant issues and work at keeping a loving feeling. "'Tis better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all." That's by Alfred Lord Tennyson. If that's true, then I can wear myself out creating a greater score towards having loved so that if it's ever lost or missing for a while, it will outweigh the pain of loss. And like two good extremes, beat never having loved at all. In other words, it pays to practice at good loving. When I don't give love somewhere, I fail to get it. I seem to think I still have the same love amount and others remain the same, but virtue actually leaves me. When I give love, I receive more of God's love, and others receive it through me and become better because of it. A successful marriage requires falling in love over and over again, always with the same person. That's by Mignon McLaughlin. Choosing love means meeting up on new levels together with different ways to get there, right? Cherishing, admiring, and adoring one another. I remember one time when I was in college and I had a piano teacher who was a woman who was married to a guy who was also in the music department. And one time during one of my classes, he peeked his head in and just kind of arranged some details for the day. And as he closed the door, she put her hand on her heart and she said, "He just makes my heart go pitter patter," which I thought was kind of cute. They're like 65 years old. Choosing love means choosing a mature love that isn't passionate and hot. That's enchantment. It's warm and comfortable. That's warm and comfortable, accepting and kind. Choosing love means experiencing repeated changes of heart. So, how do you stay in love? I know there's tons of suggestions, but I'm just going to give you a few here. First of all, let the past go again and again. Set down that backpack you don't have to carry. I mean, if you need to, take it out rock by rock, but you really can just set it down and just keep forgiving them over and over again and just continue on at this moment as if we are right here in the present moving forward. Just let the past go again and again. 2, have dates with meaning. Pull out all the stops. And yes, I'm an organist, not always by choice, sometimes just because they need it. Some of the dates that we've had in the last year alone are a moonlit hike in the dark at a national park, dinner show and stay at a nice hotel, putting a mattress on top of our SUV and watching a meteor shower. We've tried all the rooms in a cool bed and breakfast, on different nights obviously. My husband set up Scrabble, the game, in a tent in the bedroom at Christmas time with a screen fireplace that was actually on the laptop. Concerts, programs, plays, Shakespearean, comedy, theater in the round, you name it. Cross-country skiing at state parks and golf courses, frolf, which is frisbee golf, and suicide shakes, where you put all the flavors together that you can think of, like grasshopper and cherry and pineapple and caramel. And then also we are becoming hot springs aficionados, where we try to check out all of the different hot springs around and which one we like, and they're really fun just to go and check out together. So we always do one getaway per month. We make it good on our once a month getaway, and then we have our weekly Friday dates. And usually this is tennis and going out to lunch somewhere and maybe talking about something about marriage. It's just kind of fun to do that. And then I love this idea. This is an idea called the attention given to spouse is like a phone or a device. So think about how you treat your phone or your device, and how is it like you treat your spouse. This is an idea by my mentor, Tamara Fackrell. She's a PhD she's a divorce attorney. So where is your device? Are you keeping it clean and dry? Are you keeping it charged? Keep it updated and decluttered. Take a break from it as needed. How else can you care for your phone or your device? And isn't that a great piece of advice, to treat your love like a device? And lastly, choose to have a good spirit with you. So let's go over just a few points there. When you choose to have a good spirit, you're going to have boundaries for yourself so that you can have self-care, so that you are good enough to have a good spirit with you. And then you repeat boundaries, self-care, have a good spirit over and over. Also, tap into the power of love. Make one man weep, make another man sing, right? So be intentional about having love in your life. Tap into that power. Also, study love like you do scriptures or good nutrition. If you daily study your scriptures, and if you are regularly listening to podcasts or looking at information on how to be better with your diet or with exercise or whatever, you're studying that regularly. So study love like you do other things that you study regularly. Or we might even say sports. My husband likes to watch a sport every night, so the sports news, so why not just study it like you do something that you regularly do anyway? Study love. And then reach out to others. Nobody said we had to do this all by yourself. Reach out to others as you need and get the help that you need, because you're not going to be able to do it if you have struggles by just the two of you. And like I've said, we want to reach out for God first too, but then He can guide us to those people who are going to help us, trusted friends or therapists or church leaders, whoever it needs to be, to get the help that you need. And then I love this word, meekness. And sometimes we think of meekness as weakness or, just limp-wristed, but it's not. It's actually choosing agency to be teachable and willing. Meekness is strong, and the meek will inherit the earth. This is what Jesus was. Can we be meek with our spouses and be teachable and willing? And then this point is a little interesting one. I'd like to challenge you to try this. Feel love or a good spirit about you by fasting. And this kind of fasting is going without food or drink, including water, for 2 meals. So that's like from dinner to dinner, for example. You set aside the hunger of the body to feed the spirit, to nourish love. Do you believe it's possible? Do you think that you could feel that? Do you think you could go that long? Try it out and see what you think. So then choosing behaviors. So this one's kind of like the opposition, the little devil on the shoulder. So knowing and sometimes doing what your spouse likes. I put it this way, that choosing behaviors means knowing and sometimes doing what they like, because sometimes you don't do it, or you forget to do it, or it's just not even in your thoughts to do it. But you have to remember, you're still okay. You can still receive and give love unconditionally and not do everything your spouse wants you to do. Be true to you. And then choosing sex. Sexual intimacy is the one real thing that sets us apart from any other kind of loving relationship. It makes it unique. Sex allows you to engage with your spouse as you will with no one else in your life. Hence, you must choose into it. Schedule it if needed. Prioritize it. Figure out how you can make it work for both of you. If you are the lower desire, find an amount that makes you both happy. If you are the higher desire, pray to know how to balance your drive with other methods of fulfillment. And we'll talk about that more, the methods for increasing intimacy in class 11. So what about when you've tried everything and you're still struggling in marriage? Well, there's this wonderful concept that I love. This is compensatory power. There is a compensatory power, an additional spiritual endowment, a revelatory gift for the righteous. Compensatory means reducing or offsetting the unpleasant or unwelcome effects of something. This added blessing of spiritual power does not settle upon us just because we are part of this generation. It is willingly offered to us. It is eagerly put before us. But as with all spiritual gifts, it requires our desiring it, pursuing it, and living worthy to receive it. That is by Neil Anderson. So, compensatory power helps us when some things in marriage seem insurmountable. We can know that we can qualify for this, as it makes us more than we can be on our own and makes more of what we have to work with it. So pray for it. Live for it in marriage. So, here is an exercise for you to do. This is write for 7 minutes about what is the us feeling. So you should have the me feeling, which is different. But what is the us feeling in choosing love? What does that feel like? So here's an idea of us feeling ideas. It's a feeling of camaraderie, of just liking to be with that person, your spouse. You might want them to be the first to know. So you're just so excited to tell them about something. You can't wait for them to come home or to go on this date or whatever it might be. There's a tenderness about them when you see them doing things, or witnessing them doing something that really makes your heart beat a little faster and a little more gently. You can count on them. You know, it's like, well, if there's no one else around, you know that you can count on them. That is, of course, saying you count on God first, but you know that you can count on them. And then you feel larger and more expanded, like you're a larger spirit and like they are a larger spirit. You both feel better and more expansive together. So, what is your us feeling ideas? So, write about that for 7 minutes, and I'm just going to finish off with this quote. A wise old man once told me, I was given my wife to learn how to understand and love her. If I give up on that quest, then I have failed one of the most important challenges. He concluded, all the pieces have finally clicked together, and I can now see how they say a mature love is more radiant than I ever imagined possible. We are now the light in each other's eye. So that is the end of section 6, I Choose Love. The next class will be the final wrap up, I Choose You Ultimately. So I'll see you in the final concluding section.
I choose you ultimately. There's a story that goes as follows. Jeannie was fairly old when she finally found Dee. She wasn't so enamored with him, but accepted to marry him, she at age 30 and he at 40. She was wishy-washy right up to the wedding. Jeannie told Dee if she got a prompting at the altar not to marry him, she wouldn't follow through with marrying him. Nothing stopped her, and she did marry him, and they had children together, 5 beautiful red-head daughters. Dee wasn't very quick or profitable in the work he did with animals, so they barely made it financially, and only because Jeannie worked as a school teacher for several decades. Unfortunately, Jeannie was diagnosed with breast cancer, and choosing not to treat it medically, she died around the age of her 5 girls finally finding spouses and getting married. Dee hung on for quite a while, living with his daughter Tammy, who took care of him for several years. Dee got old, got sick, and started to die. His 5 girls came to bid him farewell, but he didn't die. He hung on for weeks and weeks. His girls could see he was ready to pass on, but he seemed uncomfortable passing from this world to the next. So they finally asked what the hang-up was. It's okay to let go, Dad. But he countered, I don't think she'll want me. When they realized he was talking about their deceased mother, Jeannie, they took pity on him, remembering the story they'd heard of their parents' marriage, that their mom wasn't exactly excited about marrying Dee. It may be totally true. He may be advancing to a place of loneliness. One night shortly after his admitting he was afraid to pass, Tammy, his daughter, had a dream. In the dream, Tammy was visited by a young version of her mother. Tammy couldn't believe she'd have such a chance to actually speak to this mother long gone. So she pled, Mother, Dad is afraid to die because he thinks you won't want him. Jeannie answered, with a beaming smile, Oh, I want him. Things are different here. Tell him to come on up. So Tammy did tell her dad she believed her mother definitely wanted Dee. Why? What would be different? Well, whatever the case, she convinced him things would be different in another realm. Dee passed peacefully the next day, surrounded by his 5 lovely red-headed daughters. What can we take from this story? Things between you and your marriage may be more right than you realize. Your very choosing your spouse right now may set a standard of choosing well for later. If you could remember your time before Earth, do you think you could or would have chosen each other? How does this story make you feel different about choosing each other? Well, I hope you will choose God, choose your spouse, him, choose yourself, choose both of you or us, choose your why, and ultimately choose love. Because you treat differently
what you want to last forever. Thanks for taking this course, and I hope you have a wonderful marriage and enjoy the rest of my courses as well.